Well, folks, there is one phrase that I think it's time we retire. And it's a phrase that I've used before, and it's an idea that I believed in for a long time. But after thinking about it long and hard, I really feel it's time to put this phrase to bed, and that is, the kids are going to save us. We always think that the younger generation will grow up, they'll see through it, and when they get their chance to vote, they will vote it out. And I've thought it before. My favorite band of all time is the Drive-By Truckers. There is not one song in their catalog that I don't just absolutely adore. For me, there's the Drive-By Truckers, and then there's music. They had a song they put out called Thoughts and Prayers, and I love it. It's one of my favorite songs they did. I thought the message and what needed to be said in that was so on point. There was a line in it that said, one day Generation Lockdown will have their day, and they'll vote these bums all out, and they'll drain the swamp for real. And the first time I ever heard that, I thought, wow, that'll happen, that'll work. They'll come to the rescue one day. That's a great sentiment, and it's a great thought to have, and I love the song. But I realize that to think that kids are going to grow up and save us is not realistic. Because, see, I've always wanted to be the guy that listened to the kids, and I've always been supportive of the kids. I've always been on their side. And I had Adam Mockler on my podcast, and when I did, I told him, I said, man, you give me hope for the future. You know, he's a young, bright kid, one of the best voices out there in the pro-democracy movement, super smart, super intelligent, understands how it all works. And I said to him, I said, man, I'm so proud of you. And I text him from time to time just to tell him, I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. But for every Adam Mockler out there, and for every kid that listens to Adam Mockler, there's also kids listening to Charlie Kirk and Aiden Ross and Nick Fuentes and Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh. And they're being raised up by parents who do so. And I think it goes even deeper than that. Because I was talking to my mom and dad. They were teenagers in the 1960s. They lived through all the turbulence of the 1960s with the civil rights and everything that was going on, all the marches, all the protests, the church explosion in Birmingham, all the riots in Selma. They grew up seeing that on TV and living in that era. They saw the assassinations of JFK and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They saw all that unfold. And then they saw Richard Nixon get elected. And they've both told me how they never seen that coming. They never thought that Richard Nixon could ever win. And then he wins in a landslide, and they're just devastated. The kids didn't save him. The kids didn't save him back then. And as time has went on, we've waited for the kids to save us. But the problem is the kids grow up. You go back and look at the footage of the black people back in the 60s being sprayed with the water hoses. You come forward, you see the police officer with his knee in George Floyd's neck. The kids didn't save us. You go back and look at all the images of the black people being beat over the heads with clubs. You go back and look at the images of Martin Luther King having rocks thrown at him. You go back and look at the images of him laying there assassinated. And you look at that image, that disgusting image of the people that were squirting the mustard and the ketchup on the black people's heads at the counter. I used to say to myself back when I was younger and naive, and I own it, I used to say to myself, well, I wonder where all those racist rednecks went. I wonder where they went. Well, I'll tell you where they went. They raised their kids. They raised their kids up to be the Ben Shapiros and the Matt Walshes and the Alex Joneses and the Charlie Kirks. They just raised their kids and passed it on down to them. And I was naive for a long time in thinking that by 2024, racism will be in the dustbin of history. But Donald Trump and MAGA proved me wrong on that one, and we'll be eating a big plate of crow from now on over that one. And I know there'll be some troll in the comment section that will say what I'm about to say is white guilt. It's not. I don't have white guilt. I just know assholes when I see one. And I would like to say to the black community, I truly am sorry for thinking that it ever went away for a second, or that it had ever gotten better for a second. We just kept sitting back hoping that the kids would save us. But that's really a selfish way to think about it, because it's not up to us to wait on kids to save us. It's up to us to save ourselves and to save the kids. And it's up to us to educate the kids on racism. It's up to us to educate the kids on the history of this country and what it was all about, how it was founded, and the flaws in the foundation, and the flaws that we've had ever since the foundation. There's going to be a large uptick of book bannings and all sorts of things like that. And there's going to be kids that are going to grow up in a generation where they're never even going to hear about racism. They're not even going to think it exists. It's up to us to remind them, and it's up to us to teach them that it does. It's up to us to educate them on what's really truly going on in this world. It's up to us to teach them to listen to other people and hear other people's struggles in this world. It ain't up to us to sit back and wait on some kid to turn 18 so he can save us and fix our problems. That's not the way to go about it. The way to go about it is to realize they're over there raising their children, and they want to have a bunch of them, and they want to raise them. The Charlie Kirks of the world, the J.P. Mandels, all those guys, they want to raise their kids up. One day, our kids, Adam Mockler's kids, will be going up against their kids. And they'll still have to stand on the side of truth, and they'll still have to stand on the side of justice, and they'll still have to stand on the side of democracy. And it's up to us to teach them and help them along and to help them understand. And some people says to me that I don't criticize the left enough. Some people says that I don't focus on the extreme radical left enough. Well, I'm going to tell you why that I don't. Because they're not in a position of power in the government. Joe Biden was not a radical left politician, neither was Kamala Harris. No matter how many times people screams or Trump screams radical left, they weren't. They never were. The radical left is not the ones that are going to be making laws now that are going to affect so many people. It's the radical right. But what I would say to people on the left is when you jump on this wagon, and I'm really speaking to the Bill Maher type of liberal right here. When you jump on that bandwagon of everything's woke has went too far. Woke has went too far. And you start saying, oh, it's not so bad. What you do is you teach a generation that when someone points out that something is racist or this is deeply rooted in racism, when you try to point that out to a kid, they've already been taught that, oh, that ain't real. That's just woke. So it does nothing for the argument. That's my biggest criticism of the ones on the left that wants to try to spend all their time talking about the radical left and talking about woke and siding with the radical right who thinks that black people benefited from slavery. That's the biggest problem that I have with the people on the left that goes, well, I'm just here to crucify woke too. I'll jump over here and yeah, I'll give it to Charlie Kirk. Yeah, woke's went too far. Woke was a word and was a statement that came from Leadbelly. Huddy Ledbetter is who coined that phrase. That was the black man's phrase. That was them saying we are awake and we are aware of the injustice going on in this world. And over time, the Ron DeSantis of the world got a hold of it and they demonized it. The Trumps got a hold of it and they demonized it and made it a bad word. And then you got people on the left that'll jump over and say, yeah, I think that's what it was. We shouldn't have been so woke. But when you do that, what you do is you have a generation growing up not understanding what racism is because they've just been taught that that's just something that we say. And it's not real and it don't exist. And then the kids sit there and watch George Floyd beg to breathe. And some of those kids still got up and voted for a man who would give that officer immunity. So it's time to stop saying the kids are going to save us and it's time to save ourselves. I really didn't mean to bring down the room, but I have really been in a lot of deep reflection, thinking about how I was going to handle my content going forward and thinking about what I was going to say and thinking about where I was going to say to you that, folks, there was some times I got it wrong. Well, I want you to understand that when I said the kids are going to save us and when I said one day the kids will, it was because I'm for the kids. I'm on their side. I don't want to be the grumpy old man yelling, get off my lawn. I don't want to be the bitter old dude that just says everything they like sucks. I kind of almost grew into that guy for a minute. And now my son Emmett has me listening to songs that no, I probably wouldn't listen to 15 years ago, but I listen to him because I see that it brings him enjoyment. I've never wanted to be that grumpy old bastard. But it's time to realize that to depend on the kids to save us is pretty selfish. We have to educate our kids, help teach our kids, help guide our kids the best that we can, and hope that that begins to make some change in this world. But folks, I want to thank you so much for sticking along with me on this ride. I know politics gets heavy. I know it gets hard to talk about sometimes, and I don't blame you if you need to tune out and take a break. But if you feel like hitting that subscribe button, leaving a comment, or just dropping a blue heart in the comment section to let me know you're okay, do that, and we'll continue to push the conversation forward. I've got a lot of cool stuff in the works that I'm working on. I'm not going to slow down. I'm not going to back up. So don't worry. As long as I have a platform, I'll be sitting here calling it out and moving the conversation forward.